We are going inside tonight, the part 3. This is the third of 3 parts that we've been doing for the last couple weeks with the Democratic Socialists of America. And the Democratic Socialists of America are doing something called SALT training. SALT training is when the DSA gets you a job in an organization, and your goal is to agitate to form a union in that organization because they're trying to prepare for a mass general strike that they want to do in 2028. And so the more people that they have in unions now, the better it's going to be for their mass general strike in 2028. So this is part 3 of the training, where they're going to be talking specifically about how to get people jobs.
My name's Ira. I live in New York City. I'm an Amazon worker and a Teamster staff organizer. And I'm here to tell you a little bit about this idea of strategic campaigns and strategic industries. So unions are a big part of what working class power means. Without rebuilding our unions, we're not going to rebuild working class power, and we're not going to be able to tackle any of these enormous problems facing us. So our task as socialists is nothing short of rebuilding the labor movement. And that doesn't just mean rebuilding unions, but rebuilding unions is a necessary part of it. If we do not rebuild our unions, we will not be able to tackle any of the major existential problems facing society. So we discussed in the first session how in the past, salting socialists who go get jobs to build unions or bring their politics into work to rebuild working class politics from the ground up. That is historically how the labor movement has been built. And that's what we have to do as DSA, as socialists now, is we have to get back into the workplace and start organizing unions. If unions continue to shrink, it doesn't just affect the workers in existing unions, it affects all workers. Union density, union militancy, all of that is related to workers being in unions and participating in those unions. So as socialists, it's up to us to accept responsibility to what socialists have done in the past to deal with this existential problem of a weak working class. So how do we do it? It's not, and it never has been, just about workers building power where they're at. That's part of it, and it can be part of it. But it requires a bigger picture analysis of looking at which workers hold the most economic and political power, which sectors in the economy, which industries, which types of workplaces are most crucial to the functioning of the economy, and which companies are shaping the future of society. Those are where we can build strongholds of worker power. Those are where we can start. It can kind of be that Archimedean point, right? Because if we're just organizing anywhere, but we're not concentrating on where we can hit the capitalists the hardest, then it's going to be a lot harder for us to win. So I like to think of it as a number of questions. Number one, how can we bring the most workers into the fight? But then how can we also hit capitalism where it's the weakest and where we can do the most damage? And that's where the question of strategic focus comes from. Some workplaces in this respect are more strategic than others. So we're going to talk about a few of these workplaces where we have active strategic campaigns. Also, Shayna or someone, if you can give me a time check if I'm going too slow, just let me know. So one of our strategic focuses is Amazon. That's where I'm employed. This is strategic because it's where there's a whole lot of workers. It's the second largest private sector employer in the world. And in fact, if you define a large workplace as any workplace with 1,000 or more workers, fully 25% of those in the US are Amazon warehouses. If you include Amazon drivers as warehouse workers, then that number is probably much higher than 25%. These are also very proletarianized workers. They're not, they're not high-paid tech workers who have a stake in capitalism, plugging away and continually rewarding them. These are generally low-paid, generally immigrant, and Amazon strategically locates its facilities to prey on communities of color. So those workers are workers who have an interest in new unions. And it's also like Ford was back in the early 20th century, Amazon is the cutting edge of technological change and cutting edge of change in the industry. In this case, e-commerce, AI, and logistics. Fortunately, there's a big campaign underway, a growing campaign, I should say. We've already organized around 10,000 drivers and warehouse workers into the IBT. We're currently fighting for a contract, though Amazon is refusing to recognize us. We have public campaigns in New York City, Atlanta, Chicago, California, Kentucky, Missouri. We've also got underground campaigns elsewhere. We are organizing for safety pay, reasonable workloads, and also in some places we are really deeply integrating political education into this work. But we've still got a long way to go. We need to be building up enough power to be able to shut down crucial markets and tell Amazon, for instance, if you want to put packages on doorsteps in New York City, you have to do it on our terms. So Amazon is a strategic campaign, a strategic focus of DSA SALTs. Another one is, we'll actually come back to this. This one's just getting off the ground, but auto manufacturing, largest domestic manufacturer sector in the US with over 1 million employees, huge factories, fixed capital costs. So companies have invested a lot. And as we transition to electrical vehicles, it's even more important. And there's a lot of public investment. The UAW, auto manufacturing, the industry already has an active union, the UAW. That is a very dynamic and reformed union with a lefty leadership and a strong rank and file current in it. And it's also a union that is under existential threat by non-union plants. So they have a strong interest in organizing new plants. Next strategic industry is education. So this is already the most heavily unionized sector in the U.S. A lot of teachers, a lot of educational workers are already unionized. It's where we've seen a lot of the most militant strikes in recent years as well. And one thing that makes this kind of unique is it's not subject to automation in the same way as a lot of industries are. So this is an industry where we expect humans to continue to play a very significant role. It's not easy to offshore it either, right? You want schools in your communities. You can't offshore that school to India or something. So we have like fixed power in place in the educational workforce. It's also a choke point of social reproduction. That means if we're raising the next generation of workers in the schools, it's where capital needs things to function, because this is where workers are made and educated and plugged into the workforce. So it gives us a lot of leeway over how that social reproduction unfolds. It's deeply connected into the communities. Teachers tend to know parents, and it's a choke point in the economy too, through that deep integration into the community. When schools shut down, there are ripple effects through the entire economy, because then parents have to stay home and take care of their kids. They're not at work, so that you see this big chain reaction. And then it also brings workers in direct confrontation with political power. These workers are often negotiating directly with their state governments and directly confronting, right-wing governors and whatnot. So it's a very strategic industry to organize in, and it's one we've seen a lot of class consciousness in. Another one exciting that you've seen probably in the news is Starbucks. Strategic because it's the second largest fast food company in the world. Young queer organizers leading an extremely visible national campaign. I think we're well over this now, but 650 stores unionized in the US and growing. You see Starbucks everywhere. Most of them aren't unionized, but it's growing quick. Starbucks Workers United has a lot of very politically conscious organizers involved. It was one of the first unions to come out in support of Palestine, and it already has a lot of overlap with DSA membership. So it's a good place that we can plug in and help revitalize the labor movement from. Let's see. Let me just double check, make sure we're good on time. All right, Delta. Similar to Amazon, Amazon is the movement of goods. It moves huge volumes of the U.S. economy. Delta's an airline. It moves huge volumes of people. So it's an economic choke point, just like Amazon is. It's the largest airline in the world by revenue, total assets, market cap, most profitable. And it also it's in the top 3 for the size of its fleet. It's got nearly 1,000 planes. And importantly, it's the only main US airline without a union. So very important. There's already a public campaign across the country, and it's focusing on the hub locations, like hub and spoke. It's focused on some of the more strategically located sites within Delta's network. And in a rare effort in the labor industry, unions are actually working together on this campaign. So you have the International Association of the Machinists, who are working to unionize the ramp workers. And you have the Association of Flight Attendants, who is working with the flight attendants, but they're working together to unionize Delta together. It is a very aggressive anti-union campaign at Delta. They're spending tens of millions of dollars. So those workers need all the support they can get. And last but not least, we have groceries. Grocery workers are frontline essential workers. They allow us to meet our basic needs. I don't know if any of y'all remember during the pandemic, but without grocery workers, a lot of us would have been up a creek. The UFCW is the 5th largest union, same size as the Teamsters, which I work for, 1.3 million. And the fight is really bubbling up with grocery workers, especially within the union. There is now a growing reform movement, so it's a pretty important struggle to support. Grocery stores are integral parts of every community. They're pretty hard to offshore. I know that there's a lot of food being shipped nowadays, but people still have to go get their groceries. And it's oftentimes folks' first jobs, first experience in a union, and it can really just shape their outlook for the rest of their lives. And whether or not it's unionized is going to really shape whether or not they stay in that job. And it's something they can support themselves on. A lot of young people. So, are you ready to join the labor movement? Take out your phones, scan that QR code, and fill it out.